Guys, thank you very much for showing up here today. Look, you're actually the first people that I have met when we moved to South Florida, right? You came in actually to say hello. I wasn't there. You introduced yourself because you're the president of the HOA.
Yes. Most
of the people listening have no idea what an HOA is. And until very recently, I was one of those people. Why did you decide to be a president in HOA? And by the way, HOA stands for Homeowners Association, which is like the big brother that watches over the neighborhoods.
That's correct. That's correct.
What possessed you to do this?
I saw the way the money was being spent in the community.
All right.
And I didn't like it.
It's a good way to start.
So I felt we could save a lot more money if I was in there because I have a construction background and everything. The people who were running the HOA before me didn't really know about anything, and they were pretty much getting ripped off.
Really?
What we were getting, yeah.
Did you actually find out where the money was going?
I never did.
What is the actual purpose of the Homeowners Association? I'm not talking about your role in as a president. I'm talking about the HOA.
Well, the HOA, pretty much it regulates what goes on in the community. I mean, it's not like, a neighbor can't be having mattresses out in front of their house, park cars on the front lawn.
But aren't there bylaws for communities that aren't gated that prohibit that sort of stuff? I know non-big gated communities, which is this whole gated community is a new thing for me. They have an HOA.
I own a house across the street from our community.
Okay.
And anything goes over there. I mean, They got cars on the front lawn. There's mattresses all over the place. So, an HOA makes it a little bit easier too. As far as the HOA that we're in, with lawn care and everything, it's less stuff that the homeowner has to worry about, the sprinkler systems. It's a gated community, so it gives you a little sense of security in the community also.
All right. How long have you been the president of the HOA?
5 years now.
All right. And how long have you two been engaged?
2 years. 2 years.
2 years. All right. Time to pull the trigger. Just saying. And how did you two meet?
Jana lived 4 houses away from me.
And where are you guys originally from?
We're both from Long Island. I'm from Dix Hills, and he's like the next borough.
Get closer.
Oh, he's
Bethpage.
Bethpage.
You guys didn't know each other from New York, right?
Nope.
No.
Okay. All right. So you guys, what brought you to Florida? Yeah, you guys.
We have 2 totally different stories.
All right, start with yours.
My mom wanted to move to Florida. I was in college.
Okay.
And I was adamant on moving here because I thought you came here to die because my grandparents lived here.
I used that saying many, many times before I actually knew what I was talking about.
Yeah. So I thought this was like an old age home, and I just cried and stomped my feet. And she came here to pick out my college.
Now, do you mean Boca specifically or South Florida specifically?
I meant coming from Long Island, moving to Florida. That's where my grandparents live. I have no interest in moving.
Right.
In my early 20s and did not want to move here. I threw a huge open house and trashed our house just to prove to my mom that you're not doing this to me.
You know what? I could see that. I could totally see that.
I was bad. I went through like a rebelling against coming here. My
Is Brianna anything like that? Should I worry about this?
Not yet. She's very quiet, very different than I am. Okay. I struggle understanding her. So hopefully not going to be like that.
Okay.
But now it's the best thing she ever did. I went to college. She picked out my college, Lynn University.
Okay.
Which is probably the most expensive college in Florida.
Is that right?
Yeah, I got financial aid, but still.
So student debt here is like an epic thing. I didn't realize how important. I know people that are like super established, doing really well, and they don't own a house yet. And I'm like, what's the deal? Is this a calculated thing? They're like, no. We just can't afford. We can't dig out of student debt.
$16,000 a semester.
Okay, so that explains a lot. And this is the only thing you can't go bankrupt on, right? In the United States, you can't declare bankruptcy and then get away from your student debt obligations. Everything else you can.
Yeah. So, but it was great when I moved here. The school I went to, a lot of people from Long Island were there, and I bumped into some people that
a lot of people from Long Island were
in Lynn University.
Okay.
At my college.
And remind you, how long ago was this?
90. I started in 99.
And have you guys already moved here?
We moved here. Yep.
What was the biggest change from New York to Florida? Pros and cons, if you can remember, like if there's anything like sticks out in your head.
Well, I was young, so it was fun. I mean, I was in school.
It was fun to move?
once I got settled in and I liked school better than I thought I would. I mean, clearly the weather was nice. When I went to Nassau Community for a year, I had to walk through ice cold to get to class, and having it palm trees and just the beauty of Florida. I'm like, okay, I could do this, and started going out and started meeting friends and building a community. I'm like, I dig this. Thanks, Mom. Maybe this isn't so bad.
Did you apologize for trashing the house?
No.
We're going to have to work on that because Mom lives in our community as well. Yes. And
I was naughty. I was definitely rebelling. But, I mean, now that I live here, it's raising a child here is phenomenal. The weather and just everything.
Backtrack on that statement. Okay. Why is raising a child here phenomenal? And it's going to be important to a lot of people that are going to listen. And I'm going to tell you that I heard multiple perspectives and I have my own, because here's the hot topics about what we're talking about. Here's things that inevitably always leads into a conversation. First, people ask us why we did it, right? And it's not just a one plug and play answer. And I can go into, a diatribe of the reasons. But then we talk about education, which was the anchor for us. And then we talk about guns. We talk about healthcare. We talk about taxes. And it kind of and all of those tangent into other things. Now, I've heard two different things about raising kids here. So if you talk to a Canadian about raising kids here, for the most part, they're terrified because of guns. And then they think of parkland. Right. And we have a wild story about, we weren't going to come to Florida. We were thinking Texas. And when I was talking to my wife about Texas, there was a lot of people that were moving down. Although I've sent a lot of real estate business into here, which is one of the reasons why I expanded my team here. There was the Uvalde shooting. And my wife says, no way in hell are we going to Texas. We're going to Florida. I'm like, there's guns there too. A lot of guns. She didn't know that. Right. So why is this such a great place to raise a kid?
It's the weather. It's nice here. You don't have to tell your kids to put a jacket on. I mean, I know going away with Brianna to New York and getting her to wear a coat when she was younger was a struggle, and layer up in clothes.
I have horror stories about 3 kids in the car. It would take an hour to get them in the car, strap them in, and we get them in, and then they'd say, I have to pee. And then we have to unstrap them and take them back out. And I'm like, we're not going anywhere. And it's happened more than once.
Didn't have to deal with that. But I wouldn't say a school district point of view. Where I grew up in Long Island, all the schools were good. When I moved to Florida, I learned after taking her out of preschool, which was at a temple, that you have to have them gifted and lottery and all this talk.
Can you expand a little bit about that? Because most people don't understand how important the communities and the education portion is.
So when you move to Florida and you have your kids start in school, there's certain schools in certain zones that are not good schools. So if you live in a community, they get ratings. Ratings on the area, the type of kids that go there, the teachers that teach, and the programs that are offered in the school. So I don't know. I think I'm in Lexington Estates, a nice community. Didn't really think to look into the school district that was zoned for Lexington Estates until I bumped into some neighbors that are like, did you get Brianna tested for gifted? Did you look into lottery, which is for different schools that you aren't zoned for?
Lottery.
Yeah. So basically you fill out an application.
And online. How many schools need a lottery? Are there specific schools? That's
any school you want to choose for your child to go to that your neighborhood is not zoned for, meaning there's not a bus that comes to pick your child up.
But if the school is a highly rated school and you live in the district, you automatically granted access? Is that how it works?
No, you have to get them tested, which is...
Even for a public school?
For a public school, yeah. I'm talking about public schools.
I didn't know that.
You pay for private school. You can get your kid into any private school. This is public school.
Public school, you need to get testing to get access?
For if it's not your school zone. Yeah.
But if it's in your zone, you get automatic granted access. Okay. So
that's what they were trying to explain to me, is you don't want your kid going to this school here because it's not a good school. There's better options. So my head was spinning. I'm like, what? Lottery? Am I playing the lottery? I didn't know what that meant. Coming from Long Island.
Right.
We went to school wherever. All the schools were good.
Same in Toronto. There's a lot of similarities between New York and Toronto.
Yeah, we didn't have that. So this was like a red flag to me. And I'm like, what are they talking about? And I researched more into it. And I didn't apply for the lottery. I did gifted, which you hire a psychologist to test your kid. You pay them, test your kid, and see if they are able to be gifted, which is like honor student.
And then you could still go out of your district with the gifted moniker, I guess.
You get something formed,
and then
form signed, and you're able to go. Like Brianna went to Whispering Pines Elementary School,
and that's not
which we're not
zoned
in zone.
for Lexington
No.
Estates. Okay.
That's zoned for like the Bridges and the Oaks, like the nice communities on that side of
What
there.
do you
where
mean
get,
the nice communities? What's wrong
Nicer.
with Lexington
Nice.
Estates? Hello.
You know you're getting.
Oh,
Sitting next to the
God.
president of Lexington.
you're
Oh
waiting
my
in
God, how
line
dare
and
you.
you see
I'm starting a marital
BMWs.
here right now just because
Yeah,
based on that. But
A little bit different.
no, but this is incredible information because look, you have to understand. We use Lexington Estates as like it was our secondary option. And what I mean by that, school first. Our kids are going to Donna Klein and Zale, which is in the same community. We had no idea about much of anything else. We knew that we wanted that school, and once we had access to the school, then we started shopping. And then there were certain parameters of things we needed to. Yeah. So we wanted that south view. We wanted a pool. We wanted lake. I know it sounds snobby. That's what we wanted. And we needed 5 bedrooms because we knew there was going to be a lot of people coming in and out. And we haven't had a month since we moved, and it's been 8 months ago that we haven't had at least someone stay with us for a minimum of a week. So and we converted into an office as well. But we didn't know anything about gated communities. We didn't know anything about anything. We still don't know, but like if we look, 8 months ago versus today, we could breathe a sigh of relief, and at least I know where the grocery store is or where I can go to a doctor. And I know that I can call the president of the HOA because I've had run-ins with the HOA, not even knowing, like, I'm a good Samaritan. I care about my property. I care about my community. I care about the people around me. I care about my kids. And I still have a sticker that we had to peel off of my wife's car because she parked overnight. And it's an aggressive sticker. Like, we've washed the car multiple times and you couldn't take it off. Like, let me explain. They stuck this giant sticker saying you can't fucking park here. And we're still trying to remove it with like paint thinner, and we can't get it off.
Why can't they just stick a Post-it?
Yeah, or like a warning?
We've all gotten them. I've got them myself.
Okay, what happens if I just keep leaving my car out?
Third time you get booted.
What is boot? Like a boot on the
tire.
Oh, dude, I'm going to show up in Beth's office.
That's not.
Like, and Beth is what was Beth's role? She's
she's the property manager.
Property manager, right?
She gets paid to do what people call Joe for.
But we have nothing to do with the stickers. That's the parking enforcement that does that.
Now, is that private or is that city?
That's through our guard service.
Okay, so the guard service that we're paying for is bullying us.
Right.
Okay, just making sure I got that.
Well, no, they're not bullying. They're doing their job.
All right. Well, we can. Well, what if you have guests? Like I had a situation.
Then you just email Beth that you haven't guests and you're asked for permission to park overnight there. And it's not a problem.
Here's my first run-in. So for our gated community, and I want to get your takes on why you think there's gated communities, because I still don't. I mean, I conceptually understand, but there's such a wide array of communities, 55 and over, golf, country club. Right. I probably know only a third of them, but we just arrived and we came here. It was just my wife and I and our dog, Luna. And Luna, she's a big pit bull looking kind of dog, but she's a softie. And we are on the Lexington Estates group the pool guy came in and opened up the gate, and she ran out, and I'm watching this happen. So she came out from the other side of the gate and it was maybe a 30-second interaction. Within 30 seconds, I see multiple posts on that chat. Pitbull on the loose without a collar. Oh my God.
I saw him.
Inappropriate owner. And I'm thinking, what's happening here? How are people that quick? And is there somebody just scanning? Is there, I thought there was cameras all around. I don't know. Maybe there are, but this was a 30-second thing and multiple people were on this like it was their job.
Yeah.
What do people not have like anything to do in their lives in
it
community?
Seems that way.
Some people don't. I mean,
complain about everything.
I have.
Joe hears it all.
So explain this to me. Like, first of all, why are they gated communities?
Why is there a gated? Why
are there gated communities in South Florida?
Well, like I said, first of all, it's a sense of security being in a gated community.
You can walk through and jump that fence.
Yeah, but you know what the fence does? It is a deterrent. We do have a guard on duty 24 hours a day. Another reason for the gated community is a lot of people like the idea of the Homeowners Association doing the grass. So your neighbor's lawn's not 2 feet high and you can't do anything about it. Okay. You're spending all this money, living here. And then here's a guy next door to you who doesn't take care of his property, doesn't trim his trees or anything. But if you're in an HOA, that stuff's not going to happen.
How do you stop it from happening? By ticketing? By
we give them notices, and then we've gone to court already with some people in our community that.
So what's the recourse? What's the ultimate? What's the worst thing you can do to a homeowner if they decide we don't want to do anything?
Well, we've done it already. We fine them, and if they don't want to do it, we go to court. The judge rules in our favor for us to do the work, and then we ended up suing them for the money.
Okay, and what if they don't want to pay? Do you have access? Can you take their house?
Oh, well, what happens is they put a lien on their house.
Oh, okay.
The HOA.
Does that happen?
Yeah.
All right, stop it.
Oh.
Nervous tick. I do the same thing, only I do it with my pen. All right, so I have to. So you're Long Island.
Yes.
You've been here for longer than all of us.
20-something years.
Right. You moved.
I've been here 9 years, almost 10 years.
All right. What's your story?
Well, I was a New York City police officer.
Okay.
I worked in the Queens Narcotics division.
Wow.
And I worked undercover for many years. I ended up getting hurt on 9/11. I ended up getting lung disease from working down there.
So that was a big thing. I know a lot of people, like, you guys are walking heroes that were going in when everybody was running the other way. I mean, you're not the firefighters that literally walked into the building, but like you guys had to be around the buildings often.
I was a detective, and what happened was after the buildings came down, they only wanted detectives in there looking through the crime scene.
Why?
Well, we were trained than a regular police officer.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry. Yeah.
So we were only ones in there, and when you only have 5,000 detectives and it's a big crime scene, you're working 15, 16, 17 hours a day.
Oh my God, I'm so scared to go on this tangent that I want to go on right now with 9/11. But I mean, I could tell you, I think everybody knows where they were standing when those when those planes hit. Like I was in university, downtown Toronto, handing in an assignment and coming out of the subway, and the first plane just hit, and then there was this like, it's an iconic building called Sam the Wrecking Man, and across the street from it was this they were selling TVs. It was a TV shop. It wasn't like when they had them in the. I'm older,
right?
That's all, right. So. And I see a crowd of people around it, and you're just watching that second plane hit, and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah. And I just got off of work. I worked in the narcotics division, so we worked in the middle of the night. I got home about 4:00 in the morning, and I ended up getting the phone call right after both towers hit to get back to work. So I just got in my car, headed back there again. I'll never forget it. The roads were all closed. They had one lane open just for police officers, and you had to hold your shield out the window as you're driving to show the cops that you were, show the police that you were a cop going in to, for the rescue. So like I said, they opened up a dedicated lane on the road just for the police to get in there. And I'll never forget, I went into my office, and there was Greyhound buses waiting outside for us.
Why?
To transport us to the crime World Trade Center. So we all were loading up in Greyhound buses. We didn't know what we were getting into. And we ended up going to Brooklyn, and we hopped on a ferry there because the tunnels and everything were closed down to get into Manhattan. That was like the only way to get in, through the tunnels or the 59th Street Bridge. And they had everything shut down. So we had to go by ferry to the towers. And then when we get there, like I said, I'll never forget that. Everything was just burning. I remember my first night sleeping in a church right up the block from the World Trade Center. We had nowhere to sleep or anything. I didn't go home until about 3 days later. And we were sleeping in a church in the pews. I'll never forget that. And
what was that like? I mean, just seeing arguably the world's worst terrorist attack ever.
It was quiet there. I mean, you just kept hearing alarms going off. A lot of there was a lot of firemen 343 firemen died that day.
Right.
And you'd hear their beeping, and you'd have to be locating where they were. Under the rubble, you just hear the beep going off. So it was like an eerie feeling. When we got there, though, we had to start searching the surrounding buildings because there was people hiding in the buildings under their desk and everything. So you're talking 40, 50-story buildings. You had to start at the top and work your way down every single office.
And you found people hiding?
Found people hiding under their desks, shaking and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was the first day. That's what we ended up doing.
Now, you said lung disease. Were you wearing masks?
First couple of days, there was no masks. I also worked after when they would remove the debris from the World Trade Center, they would bring it to the landfill in Staten Island. And like I said, they only wanted detectives sifting through all this stuff. And I was going down to the landfill.
So those buildings probably had asbestos,
everything in there.
Look at asbestos to me. 3 months before our lockdown, I lost my father to mesothelioma, which is the asbestos-related cancer.
Yes,
it's a train wreck. Like there's no stopping it. We found ways to delay it slightly. If you were alive, I would have never come down here. So look, I'm extremely sensitive to something like that. So wow, okay. So no masks. You guys are sifting through rubble.
First couple of days we had no masks. Then they started giving us paper masks to wear. They gave us paper masks. Then a few days later we got cartridge masks. But the problem with the cartridge masks is they were getting blocked, the cartridges, and they had no replacements for the cartridges. So it was like, you were just better off without it. But after a few months after they moved the debris from the World Trade Center, they brought it to the Staten Island landfill. And that's where I was working at the landfill, sifting through all this stuff, looking for bone fragments or, anything you could find to put closure to the families. And that's where I believe I got sick at the landfill. I didn't get sick until probably about 2 or 3 years later. I noticed I was walking up the stairs. I was out of breath every time. And I was a very fit guy. I was in the police commission.
Still a very fit guy.
I was in the police commission softball league and everything. I was very, I did a lot of sports and stuff. And I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. I'd be out of breath. And, I was like, something's wrong. And then sure enough, I ended up getting some testing done. And they diagnosed me with severe asthma and scarring of my lungs. And they're like,
And pre 9/11, this was never an issue.
Never. And, I remember doctor saying, there's two things. He goes, you're never going to be able to work as a police officer again with this. And I'm like, oh, I was all scared. I didn't know. I only had probably about 8-9 years on the job when he told me that. And I was like, how am I going to support my family? I can't be a police, I can't make money, this, that. So what they ended up doing, they ended up designating my retirement as a line of duty injury. So which brings your pension up a little bit more, tax-free money. And then you get 3/4 of your highest salary. So that helped me out a lot.
So did you come down here to retire or was it something that you had to do?
Something I had to do. What happened soon after that, the cold air was affecting my lungs. I couldn't breathe with the cold air. And those winters in New York are brutal. And I found myself in a hospital more and more in hospital for 2 weeks. And I come home, I'd be back again for another 2 weeks in hospital. I'm like, I cannot live this way anymore. And we had a house in Florida already. And
at Lexington Estates?
No, I had a house in Kissimmee, Florida.
Okay.
So I would come down like for spring training and stuff, when I was a police officer and everything, also for like a week or two. And I felt great every time I came down. You Americans and
your baseball, man.
I felt great when I came down here. And I'm like, I can't deal with this anymore. This isn't a way to live in a hospital back and forth. So I just, took me and myself and my son, we came down here. I went through a divorce in New York and, I told my son I'm going to Florida. He's like,
how old's your son?
My son is 24 years old.
Have I ever met him?
He's a police officer in North Carolina.
Okay. All right.
And he ended up coming down here with me. And soon after we were down here, he signed up for the Army.
Oh, wow.
So he said, see you, Dad, I'm going into the Army.
And how'd you feel about that?
I felt he had to do something.
Right.
He wasn't about to sit around the house and do nothing all day. So,
right.
And it's something that he wanted to do. He felt he wanted to do that because of me with 9/11 and everything also.
Sure.
So he ended up signing up for the Army. He went in the Army and he went to Afghanistan, the whole 9 yards.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. You see, Americans are incredibly patriotic. Canadians are somewhat patriotic, more so when there's a hockey game involved.
Right.
We become extremely patriotic when someone is playing hockey. But I'll tell you that from my perspective, if you would ask me pre-COVID, if Canada would have gone to war with anybody, I would have suited up and I would have given my life to that country because it's an incredible place to live. And I've touched this point before, but the Canada that I grew up in, and I'm an immigrant to Canada. I'm originally from Israel. I was 8 when I moved. And my dad got the asbestos exposure in Israel because he worked for the military, and he served. So the Canada that I grew up in no longer exists in so many facets.
Right.
And that's what sparked us moving down here. Like we logistically didn't have any reason to leave. Support network, existing businesses, stuff like that. And then, we come down here, without any support network.
Right.
Part of the reason why gated community was so attractive to us, because you have the word community in it. And I love walking my dog and now my kids walking through the neighborhood. And I like knowing that people know whose kids those are. And, you got kind of, if my dog ran out for 30 seconds and people are looking and they'll, if God forbid some sort of trouble happens with my kids, I'm sure somebody's going to message in the group chat or give me a call and say, so it's nice to know that there is like, an extra set of eyes and it's good. Like you say hello to people in the morning, walking the dog, you recognize the cars that are coming in and out. But I remember, you and I had a conversation and I wasn't really sure you were going with this. And you explained it to me where one of the reasons we bought this house was the school. And at the time we weren't sure where we were going to get our visa. And we're here on an E2 visa, which is a working visa. It's something you can in perpetuity every 5 years renew. So I can essentially be here, but my kids won't have a social. But that, that's in the grand scheme of things, it's just an entry point, and we're going to grow and establish here. But you were telling, and we bought the house because there's no restrictions. So if things didn't work out, I can always use the house as a rental, or I can use it for, whatever, a vacation house or whatever. And I'd like the fact that there wasn't. And then you're sending around this thing about changing the bylaws to making it a 2-year restriction. And I'm thinking, this asshole is going to reduce my property value, and I already paid for my house way more than I should have. That's a conversation for a whole nother time because I bought a lemon, and redid everything. And we love the house, and I'm never going to sell it. But I just moved here, and this guy's changing. I'm like, fuck you. I'm not changing. Why would I make it more restrictive for buyers? And I'm thinking from real estate perspective, right? From a safety perspective, it kind of made sense to me. But like, if that's the thing that's stopping from a safety perspective, like it doesn't add up here. Why did you guys go through that?
Well, I get noticed every time a house sells in here.
Okay.
And I've noticed that more and more investors were buying in here because we were the only community with no restrictions at all. We're a pretty fair community. We don't bust homeowners chops at all. And words.
Look at you choosing your words properly. Aren't you a New Yorker? Aren't you supposed to be swearing and saying all kinds of things? There's a reputation you guys have in South Florida. Oh boy.
But we noticed a influx of investors buying in our community. And we were getting a lot of complaints from the past year or so of people doing Airbnbs in our community too, because we had no rules in our community. So people were pushing it, renting. So I felt before our community, and not just me, the board also felt, and a lot of the homeowners too, we're going to have to change these rules because this is going to turn into a rental community, party community. People are going to be on vacation, renting out rooms and houses because there is no restrictions in here. So in order to save our property value, we needed to put some type of restriction. And we were the only community in Boca without any kind of rental restrictions. And the realtors all knew that. And that's why they were pushing all the investors to our community.
Which increased your property values because people were buying and it was a supply and demand thing. Also, the market was wild. Well,
the market was wild too.
And then I came in and increased everybody's property value because I grossly overpaid. You're welcome.
The highest price in the community.
Yes, you did.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome, everybody.
But there's still, the houses are selling pretty quick. The average is a day or two on the market in our community.
Yeah, I know. Look, eventually I'm going to be the guy who's hopefully going to sell the overwhelming majority and with our community. And then so I'm like, that's part of the game plan of where I wanted to do. And I'm going to establish from our community out, but also why I got pissed off. And there's some backstories. Like community is important to me. I eventually want to have my family members all own a property. My in-laws, my mother, my brother, a lot of people, and I want to have the right people. So if there's these restrictions, that means they basically have to buy a place. And then when they're not using it, they're shit out of luck because they can't rent it out based on the current restriction, right? It's 2 years. You have to own it for 2 years.
That's for new homeowners coming in. If you're grandfathered in here.
Yeah. But what if my brother wants to buy a house?
Then is a 2-year rental restriction.
Yeah, so that kind of like, I was like, shit, this doesn't work out well.
But like I said, it's a deterrent from investors buying and renting out rooms in here.
I got you. Look,
we live here. This is our house. What do people do when they go on vacation? They party.
Not
okay.
Me.
A lot of people party.
I'm sleeping by 7:30.
This community will turn into a party area. No rules being followed because they don't know the rules.
I got you.
So that's
The other thing that it was like trauma to me and I want you guys both to speak to this. Within probably maybe a month or two, you had written a post about a sex offender walking through the community or something like that. Yes. Is that what brought on the gate? Or is the gate in the works before?
The gate was in the works before, but it was just, I wanted to let people know why we're leading up to the gate.
So I have so many questions to that and touches on all the hot topics, but is it okay to ask you whether you own firearms?
Yes.
You don't have to answer. Okay. So do you?
No.
What are your thoughts on firearms? And I'm asking her by design. Are you okay with them? Are you comfortable with them?
Sure.
Would you have them around with kids in the house?
Yeah. Depending on the location and just keeping it safe. But
is our community a safe community?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Is it because of firearms?
Not because of firearms.
No.
It's because the residents look out for everything.
Yeah.
Everyone. And they let us know anytime something's going on. The only reason I knew that guy was coming through the community is because I got a phone call.
From who?
One of the residents.
One of the people that saw my dog run out in the backyard. No, but I'm serious.
Yeah,
how did you, like, I mean, they know that person's a sex offender?
No, they didn't know that. I knew that after the fact.
So they said some strangers walking through the community,
some guy just got past the guard and he's not stopping. The guard's asking him to stop and he's walking. Can you see if you can locate him?
Now, do you take out your firearm when you go outside?
I carry my firearm anytime I leave my house.
Really?
Yes.
It's a carry conceal thing, right?
Yes.
Okay. FYI, this is the first, like, I have a firearms license in Canada, which took me 2 years to get, needed wife's consent. It was probably one of the biggest arguments I had in my marriage until we moved to Florida. We had a couple of good ones. And I walked into a gun store and asked whether I can own a firearm just for science. And they said, no, I can get a hunting license and get long on guns and stuff like that. But this is probably the first time over the last couple of weeks that my wife is like, okay, I'm not like totally opposed to it. But what I have realized is, would you say that it's fair to say that 30% of people are carrying firearms on the person all the time?
I think it's more than that.
Really?
I think it's more than that, especially in Florida.
Wow.
I think it's a little more than that.
Have you ever been in a situation where you thought you had to use it?
I have. Yes.
You actually have used it or thought you had to?
I did it. My partner used it. So I had someone chasing me with a machete. So I was running.
Is this in Florida?
No, New York.
Oh,
when I was a police officer.
Yeah, okay. I'm talking about
in Florida. Yes, I did have a situation.
In our community?
Yes.
Fuck. Holy wow. So these are things that in Toronto you'll never think of. These are things in New York you'll
with a neighbor.
Across the street. It was bad.
Really?
Yeah, I was there.
You actually took out your firearm?
Yes.
Walk me through the story. I got to hear it. And how long ago did it happen? And can I put my house up for sale before you tell the story?
What happened about 4 years ago?
Maybe 4 years ago.
With the homeowner across the street from me. We were having a lot of issues with him, not paying his HOA.
An owner?
An owner. Yeah.
Okay.
We still, to this day, we're still having problems.
But why is it on you? Or you just took it upon yourself?
Like, no. People
Jana
have the wrong...
is just smiling.
I didn't think he should have gotten himself involved in that one. A neighbor called and complained about his kids making a lot of noise at the pool. His kids got into some trouble. They're kids, you know.
How old are the kids?
The son is what?
7, 8, no, about it.
Maybe 20.
20, yeah.
20,
Okay.
Whatever the case is. She called Joe on a Sunday. We're chilling. This kid's making noise. He goes over to the pool, talks to the kid, just says, can you make your radio lower? I think the kid says, go fuck yourself or something.
Pretty much, yeah.
What would you, I would have probably told you to do it when I was 20, maybe not at 20, but no, I'm joking. Okay, I get it.
So, yeah, Joe, you know.
Joe's a New Yorker.
What did you do? I don't remember.
First thing is they weren't supposed to be at the pool to begin with because they owed us 2 years of HOA fees.
Wow.
And you're not supposed to use the facilities when you're back on your HOA fees. You lose all access to the facilities. You lose your parking pass, the transponder and everything else. So they weren't supposed to be
I didn't know that, and I'm going to make a note of that.
They weren't supposed to be in the pool area. So, they jumped the fence to begin with to get in there.
Okay.
And I just said, guys, can you turn the radio down? I don't care. You're here, turn it around. He always told me to go F myself. So really? So I told the guard, do me a favor, just call Palm Beach County. They're trespassing. They're not supposed to be in here. So then they end up leaving. They went home and they told the dad that threw them out, blah, blah, blah. So the father comes over my house and starts threatening me.
Really?
And he,
Big guy.
He came at me, and I pulled my firearm out. I did what I had to do.
Are you allowed to do that?
If I'm in fear of my life, I am allowed to do that.
On your property?
Yes.
So what's that law? Maybe there's like some rule if somebody...
It's stand your ground.
Stand your ground.
Stand your ground law.
So what, can you tell me a little bit about it? I mean, I'm not assuming you're an expert, but I mean...
If you are in fear of your life, that this guy's going to kill you or attack you...
On your property.
Okay. You have the right to do what you got to do.
Okay. So what happened?
He came on my property. He threatened me. He's threatening you too.
Well, I came outside because I heard yelling and I heard, and
commotion.
His wife attacked me, his son.
Wow.
They called me a whore because they knew that,
Wait, they're still in our community?
Yeah.
Yeah, they called me a whore. The kid's calling me a whore. He's growling, like spitting.
The kid wanted to fight me. And I'm like, dude, you're 20-some years old. I said, you want to fight someone? And I'll call my son to come and take care of you. So it got ugly. And the father was coming at me. And I did what I had to do. And
so you pulled your firearm, that stopped and ended things?
Stopped them. The wife took him in the house. And then I called 911.
Okay.
And
shit like this you do not get in Toronto. But although there's a trend right now that's really... First of all, there's two types of licenses. There's a restricted, and then there's one for hunting, for long guns and stuff like that. It's the one I have that I never purchased a firearm for. And then there's the restricted, which is what you're probably carrying on you, which is a handgun, right? That is a completely different ball of wax. That can't carry it. You can't do anything with it. And the laws in Canada are probably way stricter than they are in New York. And I know they're pretty strict in New York about firearms and stuff like that. But Second Amendment, you're allowed to have firearms. You do not get shit like this in Toronto. Although lately there's a lot more gunplay happening in Toronto, and it's because the bad guys are getting the guns, which is counter to that argument of like, if everybody has them, we'll be safe. Truth is, I don't have any issues with firearms, but if they didn't exist on this planet, I'd be a much happier dude because, there's zero margin of error. You get one psychopath, Parkland, and then the devastation is for generations and not just the people who perished, right? It's their families and the PTSD and everything that happens from there. There's no margin of error with guns. And again, I'm not telling you which side of the fence I'm on because I myself don't know, but I now know that because people are carrying in and around me and I have little kids, I mean, you're always put in a situation especially I think as a father that, and a mother is the same. Like there's nothing you won't do to protect your children. Right. And, it gives me comfort knowing that, you guys are in the community. Plus having a firearm and learning how to use a firearm are two different animals as well. Because there's a lot of people that own guns that don't know how to use them. Right. And they'll end up getting used against them. So, I mean, it's really rare. But this story that you're telling me is crazy. So what netted out on that? I mean, you guys are still neighbors.
I ended up, I called the police because I wanted to let them know what
happened. Fire a shot, did you?
Didn't fire a shot at him, no. And
what if you would have pulled out a gun?
If he would have?
Yeah.
Then there would have been shots fired.
Yeah, but that's crazy. Like, from his perspective, knowing that other people have firearms, would he not at least think that maybe you have a firearm and maybe understanding that you have a background, you were a cop?
He was just
out of his mind.
Out of his mind.
It was rage.
He was crazy.
He was growling. Yeah, I was even scared to leave the house with my daughter and walk. And what about now? After that,
there's a friction.
Oh, we don't talk nothing. I mean, the kid says hi to me now, but
really, just, holy fuck.
Yeah,
it was scary.
I mean, we were just at court with them last week.
Yeah,
again, we're at court with them. So it's just a nuisance.
Wow. Okay. I'm not trying to deter people from moving to South Florida. I'm just trying to shed light on the realities of things that you never think of. And obviously, I'm speaking specifically to Toronto, but the base of listeners also is coming from California, which is very restrictive on their gun laws. And there's like an exodus, as you guys know, into South Florida.
And I could tell you, Florida's a carry-friendly state.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't take much to get a carry permit in Florida. As far as crime,
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think it's a good thing because you don't know who has a gun if you're going to go rob somebody. And the crime is, I would say, less here crime than in Florida or New York. There's less crime in Florida than in New York or California, which have the strictest gun laws than any other state.
Do you agree with this? Are you in the same mindset?
I don't know much about it. I don't really pay attention to that.
Coming
stuff.
from New York, right, which is a different state than Florida on many accounts. You know, you weren't worried about people carrying
Never
guns.
heard of this,
right?
Never. I mean, I grew up. We were safe. There was no shootings. I mean,
Does New York have gated communities?
Not really. No,
Right.
we didn't live in a gate. It was new to me too when I moved here. The whole gated community thing, and I kind of liked it. It kind of made me feel safe, and I like going through the gate and knowing that people needed to call before they got in, and it definitely made me feel safe. I didn't feel like I needed to be safe in Long Island.
You didn't need to be safe, but in Florida, you need to be safe, right? So
especially, you know, where you live, and, you know, we live next to a not so good area, like to the right, it gets a little, you know, like when you cross the train tracks, gets a little.
I don't even know where that is. Is that
Sandalfoot to the right of us can get a little, you know.
Okay. So
scary.
that's when you leave the community.
You make a right at the light.
Right, and then there's another community. Is it gated?
It's not gated. It's just there is a gate, but there's no guard there.
No guard.
Okay, and
But she's saying past there by Cumberland Farms over there.
yes,
Yeah.
Make a right down there. It's all mobile homes.
yeah. Okay, so I saw that. I think driving down Loxahatchee one time, you can kind of see it on the other side. Okay, so I saw that, which is another thing that's really baffling, specific to the United States, definitely in Florida, is you get like, you cross the road and you can have like multi-million-dollar homes, great education and stuff like that. And then you can cross the street and you have, you know, people that are not nearly as fortunate, and it could get dangerous or whatever.
Yes.
And it's sprinkled in. I mean,
And that's what happened in our community. We had some stragglers roam in through the side when a security guard wasn't paying attention.
really?
Times.
Why would you do that? To cut a path to go?
Cut across. Like that, the sex offender, he lived behind us. So he was cutting across, going through a backyard to get home. It was a lot easier than going all the way around.
See, I guess I don't know the geography enough. I didn't realize that there's access. So are some of the backyards in our community back onto that community?
Well, it backs onto a main road where they just go right out there. But that's why it's so important, why we're on these homeowners, to make sure their fences are in good shape and everything. People wonder why. And this is one of the reasons.
The fences are like 2 feet high.
Well, there's double fences.
Right. I guess. Okay. So, I mean, I go into water, so I don't.
Yeah, you don't know the perimeter fences.
Right. These wow. These stories are crazy. And these are things that people don't think about.
Right.
What have you seen, I'd say, during COVID or the last 3 years? Like, what's the biggest change that you guys have seen in South Florida, specifically in Boca?
People.
People are short fused.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad.
In what way?
People have changed. People have gone crazy being locked up and gone through what they went through. Even family members I'm struggling
Floridians
with.
weren't locked up. You mean the people that are coming to South Florida?
No, people who live here. Everyone had a different aspect of COVID. Okay. Some people blocked their family and didn't want to be around other family or any people that were exposed to living for their sanity.
Right.
And that's all I'm going to say.
No,
it's very broad for me on people living through COVID and how they made some decisions that they wanted.
What are some of the best things that you found with this move into South Florida?
I met Joe, the love of my life.
There you go.
Down the street, and he's my soulmate, and I was with the wrong person for so many years and scared to break free because I gave up my career as a realtor to be a stay-at-home mom.
So you were a realtor for how long?
I was a realtor maybe 8 years. I worked for Toll Brothers. I had a fabulous career. I worked in 3 different communities. You should work yourself out of a job. And then when I had my daughter, I, never went back because I didn't want to work weekends. I wanted to raise my child, and I was fortunate enough to do it.
Right.
And when we moved into Lexington, I was still very unhappy with the person I was with. I got to know him when I had my daughter, and I knew he wasn't right for me. He wasn't the dad to go to birthday parties with me and be there for us. And I kind of felt like a single parent. And at night, when I would take walks with my dog and my daughter, and he didn't want to join us because he'd get home from work and bury his face in his computer, there was a nice man down the street with his son who was open arms. Hi, how are you? And offering us water. And we just talked.
Right.
We had a connection from New York.
That's a pretty
we're both from Long Island, and his son and I got along great. And my daughter wanted to come for walks, and we were just like excited to see our neighbor Joe and his son Joey, and we all connected, and it just happened. I wasn't happy, but I wasn't looking to make such a big change.
Right.
Until it was worth making the change for the person that I'm going to be with for the rest of my life, that I enjoyed being with.
Right.
Because we had that geography. You know,
look, if you were to also, COVID was what lit the fuse for us to move. I mean, that wasn't the only reason, and obviously not the weather, but it's what lit the fuse for us to make this transition. You were in real estate in South Florida. Mm-hmm. What have you seen over? This is both of you guys. Like, you've got to be happy with the property valuations and skyrocketing rentals and all that stuff. I mean, what I'm saying is, you guys are now, you said you own a couple of properties, right? And you're in construction as well.
Right.
Right. So you guys owned real estate prior to COVID, and COVID probably like lit the fuse to this flame that was just, this market was crazy. And it was crazy across the board, but Florida's really held while everybody else has taken a dip as interest rates went up. What do you guys see over the next like 2 to 3 years in real estate valuations?
I think we reached the top. I don't think it's going to go any higher right now.
Really?
I think we're at the peak right now. I mean, when I moved here 9 years ago, I paid $375 for my house.
$375.
Yes.
I wish you never said that.
My house is appraised at 1.2 right now.
But you should have seen it when he bought it.
When I bought it, yeah.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I get it.
I think we've reached the top. And like I said, we're doing a lot of stuff in the community to keep the property values up. As you see, look around, and it's working. What we're doing is working.
I could tell you that we love it here. I mean, we love the community, and I don't mean just the word community. I mean, you guys are neighbors. The fact that there is a community that is formed as people get to know one another,
right?
And you've got a flower business, and you just held an event, and you had a bunch of the ladies show up. And I'm not saying it was exclusive to ladies. I'm saying
it was wonderful to gather and
my wife
see
loved
everyone.
it. It was amazing, right? And she brought home and then she got to see people and meet people, and you guys really
networking with your neighbors.
Yeah, but
making a beautiful arrangement to bring home and smell the flowers and just
everything
think
about
of nothing.
Everything about it exudes kindness. Like, it's just a fun thing to do.
Yes,
and you can only do that when you have a community of people that you have access to, and it's nice to know that you can rely on people. Like your daughter babysits for us on a regular basis, right? I have to ask Joe a lot of stupid questions like, where do I go for good Italian or ice cream and stuff like that. No, but these are things that are like, I take for granted that I knew before that I don't know. And when somebody comes here like us without a support network, without
scary.
It's terrifying.
You gotta learn.
It's terrifying. But the amount of growth that has happened for us is something that's indescribable for us. Not only me as a parent, but also with my marriage. Like, this will test your marriage probably more than anything that you'll ever do. And we've had some really good ones. Like, I'm talking about massive blow-ups like we've never had before.
Right.
And you learn a lot about the person that you're with when you're arguing too, right? Do you fight fair? Are you there to just scorn them and hurt them? Are you just angry and scared and you're just trying to take it out on the only person that you know you can hurt? Right. And from that, we've communicated and I've got a better marriage now than I've ever had before because we're legitimately a team. I'm more of a dad than I've ever been before. In Toronto, I was, I thought I was busy. I had a live-in nanny. I had grandparents on either side, 10 minutes apart. My brother and sister-in-law, my nephews, everybody was helping out. It takes a village, right? We don't have that village here.
Right.
And I'm now, because we're establishing my wife's business and she's in a very niche field in autism and behavioral, and she's arguably the best at what she does. I mean, she was, a quasi celebrity for what she did in Toronto, and that collapsed because it wasn't deemed essential. And again, one of the other things that moved us towards our expansion plan, my real estate business. But so I'm now spending more time with my kids because I have to do those sorts of things,
Right.
And I realized how much of that I miss and how much of that I already missed. And I'm not ready to give that back. So my perspective on things has changed immensely.
And like you're saying, I tell Jana all the time, when my kids were growing up, I was constantly working.
Right.
So I didn't do as much stuff for my kids as I wanted to do.
Do you regret it?
And I do regret it. And after 9/11, I look at life a whole different way now.
Right.
Because one day you're here and next day you're not. It's just, when the man upstairs wants you or whatever, that's it. So, you got to take every day as it's your last day and treat it as it's your last day, because you never know. And like I said, that's the one thing I regret is always working so much and not being, doing stuff with my kids as much as I would have liked to.
It's amazing how much you learn in the worst situations in life, right? Yeah. And like, we're here on a podcast just talking about real life stories and the stuff that we're going through. There, people are scared to make the move or not. And these are challenges that they're going to encounter. And, there's tons of other things we can touch on, like, healthcare and things like that. And eventually we'll get there. But before my father passed away, he used to have this thing he used to tell me all the time. And it was dead on right. Like, my parents are immigrants to Canada, didn't speak the language, didn't have any money, and gave us an incredible life. My wife's parents, the same thing. We didn't lack for anything, my brother and I, and we were given the most important thing, and that's opportunity and love. And while he was really sick, he said, any problem that you can fix with money isn't really a problem. And I probably say that saying multiple times a day, every single day, because today it's about reestablishing businesses and reestablishing lifestyles and friendships and stuff like that. But he said, when you're sick, you only want one thing. When you're healthy, you want everything. So any problem that you can fix with money really isn't a problem.
Makes sense.
So that's true.
And it's absolutely dead on true. So for anybody who's ever thinking of making the move, I can tell you from my own perspective, you'll meet a lot of amazing people. I thank you guys for being, here and for supporting us when we have questions, as stupid as it may seem. I could tell you that once you overcome that fear, change is good, where we're as humans kind of resistant to it. And it is a journey right now. And I don't want to sound philosophical because I'm not one of those guys. That's more my wife's space. But I would have never met you guys. You would have never met me. I'm learning something from you. You're learning something from me. We have different perspectives and stuff like that. And for overall majority of people that you get to meet, they're pretty fucking cool.
Right.
But it is terrifying when you know nothing.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that are willing to help. And it is a journey. So
you never know where life's going to take you.
No, I never thought I'd be doing this podcast. You never thought, I never thought
I'd be divorced with this New Yorker.
There you go.
Crazy like me.
Like the overwhelming majority of what I hear from people, because sometimes like when I'm on a business end, people are very different the way they do business here. And I ask people why that is. And they say, well, two reasons. One, people are transient and there's too many fucking New Yorkers. Right. I'm like, okay.
Well, we're starting to say that now too.
No, I get it. I get it. But that's it. South Florida is much more of a melting pot. And I don't want to get into political debate because you kind of have two teams here. You have Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
And in Canada, I'm considered a hardcore conservative. Here, I'm like a Republican light, I guess, or, or a centrist Democrat. Right. And I fucking hate politics. And I think when politicians say the truth, it's by accident. But you can't, it's a necessary evil. But,
yes.
Thank you guys for being here. This is amazing. You guys are the best.
Thank you for
I appreciate you and I'm grateful for you guys. And we might do this again sometime.
Sounds good. Thank you again.
All right, take it easy.
Thank you, Ronan.